A few months ago, I had a rather curious experience that I hadn't shared on the channel yet due to its brevity. But listening to it again, I realized that maybe, and you'll decide this after you finish listening to this video, it might be related to a place that caused a lot of mystery some time ago. I'm talking about the Eye of the Delta. If you agree, let's first listen to the experience and then we'll dive deeper into this topic and its stories, which are really interesting. You can share your experience with me via the WhatsApp number shown on the screen. The number and length of voice messages you send are irrelevant. Feel free to include photos, videos, or other media to make your story comprehensive. And then, if any questions come up, I'll get in touch with you. Friends? Now, let's get started right away with this new paranormal story. My name is Abel. I'm from the city of Escobar, Buenos Aires province, and I'd like to tell you about an experience that happened to me a few years ago. It doesn't have a logical explanation, but it made me realize that not everything is as we believe. It happened to me in the year 1999. We had decided to go dancing with a friend in the city of Zárate, something that was quite usual for us at that time. And I want to point something out before I continue so there's no misunderstanding, because it's the first thing anyone would think, and rightfully so. Neither of us consumed alcohol or any other substance. First of all, because we weren't used to doing it, and at least one of us had to drive back. And also because at that time, on weekends, there were traffic checkpoints at the entrance to Escobar, and we didn't want to have any problems. Therefore, we always stuck to soda or water, nothing more than that. The thing is, we had a good time, we had fun as always, and around 3:30 in the morning, we got back in the car and started heading home. The distance between Zárate and Escobar is about 40 kilometers, so the trip was pretty quick, especially with so little traffic on the highway. But we never imagined that what happened next would happen to us. About halfway there, we had already passed Otamendi. We were actually somewhere between Otamendi and Rio Luján, to give you a more exact idea. When I noticed an object in the sky, and my friend saw it too. When I glanced at him, he was in the middle of silence, driving, but looking directly at this thing that really impressed us. What did we see? There were 3 very strange lights. One was mostly white, maybe a bit grayish and quite large, while the other 2 had a very strong yellow color. But none of the 3 were shining. That is, the colors were very well defined, but they didn't dazzle us at all. One of these lights in turn began to spill. I say it this way so you understand what we saw. A kind of halo of light towards the earth, towards the field, because in that place there is nothing but fields and swamps. And the other yellow light that was beside it seemed to join it through a beam of light as well. It was as if it transferred its own energy to it or received it. It's clear to me that what I'm telling you is quite confusing, but that's exactly why there are very few people who know about it. We never really knew how to explain it or define what happened to us, since it was truly something unique and unrepeatable.
And my friend turns around, the one who was driving tells me, don't look, because that thing was hypnotizing us. It was spectacular, it was incredible, and we kept driving, we kept going, we continued our journey. And he sped up a little, that's all, he didn't get scared. Let's say we were impressed, but my friend didn't just take off running. You know, hitting the gas pedal. Well, while he had both hands on the steering wheel, he leaned his body toward the window as if not to see him and tilted his head further to the right. I was looking like that too. The road, I didn't want to see that.
We tried not to look anymore because we felt that if we did, something bad could happen. Maybe we were wrong, but that's how we felt at that moment. I also want to clarify that it wasn't any high voltage tower, since there was absolutely none in that area, and we confirmed it as the days went by. The truth is that the few people who know this story immediately told us that it was about UFOs. For our part, we don't confirm it, but we don't rule it out either, because we're honest with ourselves. We never really understood what it was that we saw right on the Pan American Highway. If we look at the map of the area where Abel and his friends saw these lights, let's remember it was on the way back from Zárate to Escobar, between Otamendi and Rio Luján. We realize that it's exactly the place where the mysterious Eye of the Delta is located. This location is amidst islands that are extremely hard to reach, surrounded by pristine vegetation and swamps, inaccessible by most vehicles. It's an almost perfect circle that floats inside another slightly larger circle, and that's where the name Eye of the Delta comes from. There are many theories about how it was formed. One of the most reasonable is that the floating vegetation moves thanks to the currents of underground streams. In this way, over time, it took on the circular and perfect shape that we know today. But others, on the other hand, wonder how that main circle was formed, that is, the one of the mainland. Because really, that's something that's not normal. On the other hand, the locals say that animals don't want to come near this place and stay hundreds of meters away, as if they sensed something that makes them very afraid. Of course, there are swamps and the animals know it and prefer to stay away from them. But those who are in the area and have investigated notice that the behavior of these animals is not normal in these cases. Another extremely curious and striking fact is that, depending on the time of year, in the Eye of the Delta we will find completely crystal clear water. Unlike its entire surroundings, where the rivers and swamps have completely different water. Science explains that it could simply be because the underground rivers that supply this area are free of sediments. But others believe there are more reasons. So the question is, why is there so much discussion about this place? And the answer is due to the number of extremely strange stories that different people tell. And interestingly, the vast majority happened in the vicinity of this area, located within the Ciervo de los Pantanos Reserve, where the Eye of the Delta is found. Staying on topic, the story we heard today takes place in the exact spot where the Eye of the Delta is located. A few years ago, a local from the area mentioned that every so often a tremendously strong light could be seen in that area. And just as it appeared, it disappeared. It could simply be, as many people assumed, just a person who, while under the influence of alcohol, imagined seeing something. But what was striking was that different people started mentioning seeing the same thing, not just locals in completely isolated places. The residents of some nearby gated communities, as well as citizens of Otamendi and even sailors traveling along the Paraná River, also said they saw this intense light, which often wasn't just one, but could be several, and always in the direction of where the mysterious Eye of the Delta is located. I also can't fail to mention the ships that are in different channels in the area, abandoned for decades and very close to the eye. One might think that at some point those rivers were navigable by these vessels, but the locals, people who have lived there all their lives, don't know how those ships ended up in those areas, since those rivers never had the flow or the depth needed for navigation except with small boats or dinghies. Their depth isn't much. It's approximately between 1 meter and 1 meter 20, depending on the time of year and the rainfall that has occurred. But its bottom holds another mystery. Everything around it is extremely swampy. But right inside this circle there is a floor of hard limestone that, according to some investigations, seems to be burned in some way. It's very hard, stable, and different from everything around it. Another fact is that some of the different people who came to this area to visit or investigate had some kind of problem with their electronic devices. Whether it's drained cameras, drones with interference, phones that lost their charge immediately, or even people who couldn't stand the headache when they arrived at the place. The truth is that beyond the multiple theories, no one today knows for sure or has been able to explain what this place is and how it was formed. And what if it has some connection to the lights that have been seen at this site for such a long time? Just a few months ago, a person saw from the YPF regasification terminal 2 very intense balls of light that were moving completely independently. According to his words, together with his co-worker, they saw how the lights moved from the Paraná area at great speed toward the Panamericana. And then, coming back in just a second, they stayed floating in the middle of the field. They ended up disappearing into the middle of nowhere. The direction they were last seen was approximately where the mysterious Eye of the Delta is located. Returning to the main story of Abel and his friend traveling from Zarate to Escobar, it makes us think that what they saw was surely directly related to the Eye of the Delta and the hundreds of lights that are frequently seen in the area. Even though it happened to them in 1999 and this place became popular thanks to Google Earth in 2003. Thanks for watching until the end. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this topic. What do you think is going on there? If you're from Sony and you know more stories that are unknown to most people, it would be great if you could leave them in the comments. I'll say goodbye now. See you in a few days with more stories, and now I really send a big hug to all of you. Thank you.